to solidify. This is so everything actually works hand in hand. If you learn the new lesson, like we explained, and then the revision will be very, very easy. If you don't do that, one of the issues that you're going to encounter is that the work that you learn is going to be forgotten very, very quickly. And that is very, very frustrating. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to put in the effort only to feel like you're old or to feel like, oh, my brain doesn't work anymore, and all of those ideas. But actually, where the issue lies is it wasn't learned properly in the first place. You know what I mean? So it doesn't actually start by revision. Many people think, for example, the challenging thing is revision to maintain your work, but it's not actually. It is, but that's not where the challenge comes from, if I may put it like that. It actually comes from right at the beginning when we memorizing. So there's three steps, right? If you do decide to take or to embark on this journey, the first step is the new lesson. So if the new lesson is learned, and for whoever else is going to benefit, inshallah. So this is predominantly for part-time, for professionals like yourselves, alhamdulillah, that is busy during the day, and you'd like to embark on the journey. So there's three steps. The first step, okay, there's a few steps, but in the process, the first step is new lesson, right? So your new lesson, we're going to memorize just like we did it in the class. And you're not going to skip a step. You're not going to skip any part of it, right? You're going to concentrate exactly like that. And also part of the new lesson is you're going to have the plan written down. Remember I mentioned that? I said you must have a plan written down. So if you want, for example, someone spoke to me last night about having the revision. They want to fix up the revision. So as long as you're on the journey, that's number one. And number two is this, you have a plan for the journey. So you're not just doing Quran and I'm a student of Quran, but there's no end result. There must be this, even if it's for the year, I'm going to finish one juz for the year, that's fine. But this is my plan, this is how I'm going to reach there, one line a day, one ayah a day, whatever, and this is how I'm going to get there, right? That's regards to new lesson. The second thing that we learn is called recent lessons. Right? So let's just say every time you learn a new lesson, every single day or once a week, all right, you're going to go over, let's just say you're busy with the first juz. You're going to go over whatever you've learned for that week already on a Friday. All right, so how you do that is, so obviously on a Friday there's going to have been 5 lessons that were completed. You know what I mean? For Monday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Then on the 5th day, what you do is you learn those lessons backwards. So that sounds complicated. What you do is you first go over the 5th lesson. If that is the 5th ayah, then that is the 5th lesson also, right? Depending on the amount. Then thereafter, you go over the 4th lesson. Then you put the 4 and 5 together. Then you go over the 3rd lesson and you go over 3, 4, 5 together. Until you come to 1, then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you put it together. Number 5, which is your most recent lesson. If you do it in this way, how many times did you have read lesson number 5? Do you understand what I'm saying? So you're solidifying the most recent work. Everybody with me? Right? So that is once a week you must do that. If you're able to do that every day, that's great. If not, at least once a week you must do that. Because if you do that, then the 3rd point, which is your revision, work that you've already covered now. Let's just say you're in the second half of one. Now your recent lesson is no longer the first half of one. Your first half of one has become revision now, right? So when that eventually becomes revision, it becomes so simple. Why? Because your new lesson you learned it word for word. Your recent lesson you learned it ayah for ayah, going backwards. Now when you go back, when it becomes revision, is it ever going to become weak in the mind? It shouldn't become weak in the mind. Obviously, look, Allah is in control. Allah wants us to learn, etc. We're going to have stumbling blocks here and there. But if you just follow the process exactly how it's set out, you won't have any stumbling blocks. The 4th point, you must try to connect yourself to a teacher. Connect yourself to a teacher. If you're serious about, like I mentioned to some of the guys, you can even start a WhatsApp group if you want to meet here. Let's just say a Monday night, right? And you read 3 verses, for example. You can tell yourself, we're going to memorize 3 verses for the week. This is when you must do it. We hold each other accountable for that. And every week, Monday nights between Maghrib and Isha, we come read those 3 verses, we go over our revision of it, etc., etc. Now, what is going to happen is there's a support system as well. It's not just the wife that is, you're not learning your work, etc. There's actual support system that is put in place. If not here, try to find someone at your masjid, try to find someone in your family. This is who I recite to every single Monday. And there is someone that's going to hold me accountable to my lesson. Cool. Any questions before we do the revision?
No, I want to take up
Bismillah. No, Bismillah. Bismillah. Look, Alhamdulillah, I'm here like the whole week in the evenings. It's very rare that I'm not here, Alhamdulillah. So, even if it's not Monday, but it's nice to have one day for that. As in one day is for that class, and then Bismillah. Any other questions? Any challenges that you experienced the last few days memorizing? Yeah, we don't have time to do revision, right? So usually what happens is when you're on the journey and you come to a certain point, now you learn that thing. So it's very difficult for you to understand a revision because you haven't experienced it.
you explain the like recent revision, right?
Yeah.
When we discuss the methodology for revision. So let's say, for example, you know three juice now.
Okay.
Right? So you know the pack three. What is the best way to do revision?
So what you're going to do is at the end of the day, it's going to be according to an individual. So if everyone's going to be different, you're going to get the person that can read 3 juice a day, and you're going to get the person that can't even read a half juice a day.
Well, you read from the Quran, you read how you do
No, you have to do it from memory. So what you're essentially going to be doing is you're going to, depending on the condition of your revision, you're going to learn the revision to come to a point where you can read it from memory. Well, one of the most important things to remember is this, that there is a difference between reading and learning. There's a difference between reading and learning. What we did with New Lesson, that is learning. Now, whatever you're going to do, let's say you go to recents, you just, instead of having one word, the chunk is going to be a bit bigger because you've memorized it already. When you go to revision, the chunk is going to be even bigger because you've already went through the process with it, whether it's a half page or a page. But essentially what you're doing is learning. You're not doing sudais. If you're doing the sudais all the time, you're not actually learning. Okay, I don't know if you can appreciate what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? For example, if you hear your son reciting "A'udhu billahi minash shaitan" in the room and you're thinking, wow, mashallah, he's like learning Quran. Technically, he's not learning. He's actually just reciting or reading. But if he learns, you'll hear a difference. I'll give you an example. When we were reciting over here in the masjid, right? Our New Lesson, who looked at the other brothers' faces? Who was noticing the one that was reciting? Were you looking at him? Did you see their face? Was it a different face? Now that is a face of concentration when the brain is working. But you wasn't worried about the lago. You wasn't worried about the stew, flow, nothing. You was just thinking about, am I reciting correctly? His mind was concentrating so much on his work, you could actually see it on their faces. I don't know if you can remember. Alright? So that is essentially what you want to do, is learn, not necessarily read. So for example, if someone like you ask 3 juz, so what you do is, depending on the condition of the revision, and number 2 is this, what they do is they break it up. They learn a piece, they read it from memory. Learn a piece, read it from memory. Even if it's a quarter, building it up till the whole juz is finished, they will read the whole juz. Then they'll do it with the next juz, and they'll read maybe the 2 juz together in one sitting, to make it solid.
you go to a point where you read all three together.
Yes.
You have to get to a point where you can read all three after reading out.
I won't say you have to get to a point, but if you can get to that point, it means that you know it. There's no have to. And the point also, Manasan Impact, he says something nice. The point of it isn't actually to be lanja, to know your work solid. It's actually about reciting Quran. But it's nice to know your work. Okay, we have like 10 minutes left. If the brothers could make a halqa, maybe come a bit closer, inshallah. And then we decide from the beginning, if you want together. And then maybe we can take chances to recite it from memory, inshallah. No, know this. I know exactly how weak it probably is. Don't worry, it's fine. Because there was a class for 2 days now, right? So everyone, I don't think anybody was here also. Right? Everyone was broken, alhamdulillah, it's a good thing. And number two is this because we never did reasons really because of our time that we have, which is fine.
You just won't be sitting here. I was lying
No, Jamil, surah, لا أقسم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه يسأل أيان يوم القيامة فإذا برق البصر وخسف القمر وجمع الشمس والقمر يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر كلا لا وزر إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر ينبأ الإنسان يومئذ بما قدم وأخر بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به إن علينا جمعه وقرآنه فإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآنه ثم إن علينا بيانه. That's it.
20 ayats, 99.
Everyone try to recite it to themselves from memory. No pressure. This is also very important. Eventually, you come to a point where you need a teacher now, obviously, but you must also practice reciting to yourself and listening to yourself, knowing when you're making a mistake. How do you know that you must feel you don't feel right? Because you're not always going to be with people. You want to recite while you, like I mentioned, while you're driving, while you're walking, etc. So practice it. Bismillah.
فلا قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه يسأل أيان يوم القيامة فإذا برق البصر وخسف القمر وجمع الشمس والقمر يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر كلا لا وزر إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر ينبأ الإنسان يومئذ بما قدم وأخر
That's fine. You make a mistake, just check. Restart again.
ولو ألقى معاذيره لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل